Well, I don't know if it's a good day. We have a 2015 Ram 1500 Ecodiesel. That's a cranks no start. Now here's the story on this thing. Several weeks ago, the customer just came back from a road trip, drove over 1,000 kilometers in one day, parked the vehicle. The next morning, it was a cranks no start. He had it at the dealership, and they changed the high pressure pump, and then it still wouldn't run. So they told him they weren't going to work on it anymore because it's deleted. And they basically couldn't figure out what was going on. It went to another diesel specialty shop, and it spent several days there. And now it's here. First and foremost, let's have a look at some warning lights. Check engine light is there. And let's watch the tach. Looks like we got an RPM signal. So we're going to scan it and see if we've got any codes. So I apologize for the glare, but we're outside and I can't get this thing inside right now. So let's do a network code scan. It ID'd the vehicle. System voltage low, well, that stands to reason. Engine oil temperature sensor circuit high pending. He said when the dealership put the high pressure pump on, they apparently damaged some wiring. Now, would that P0198 affect startability? I don't think so, but then again, I don't work on these things very often. Unintended out of park position. That's because of the tow truck. System voltage, system voltage, system voltage. Lost communication with camera. System voltage, system voltage. So, nothing earth-shattering here by the looks of it. Let's go into the engine. Let's clear the codes. Okay, so we have no codes. So let's look at some data. I'm going to build a custom data list here. I'll bring you back when I get the list built. So nothing looks out of the ordinary here. All the temperature readings are 23, 24 Celsius, which is realistic because that's how hot it is today. Let's watch rail pressure while it's cranking. It's 102 right now. It sounds like it's getting no air. 4,400 PSI, 4,500 PSI should be adequate. Let's see if we got airflow, mass airflow. Negative 102 grams per milligrams. What the heck is mg/HUB? And why is it negative? I wonder if this has got a throttle blade and it's closed. So I'm back in the shop analyzing that recording. You can see where it cranked. The airflow per cylinder is millimeters per HUB. I've never seen those units before. And mass airflow rate is millimeters per cubic injectors or something, and it's negative 200. And this one's negative 102. I've never seen a mass airflow sensor read negative. It sounds like the engine's not getting any air, so there's a throttle valve actuator, probably for EGR flow or engine runaway, and I'm wondering if that throttle valve is closed. Although it says here that it's at 4. Let's see, where is the throttle valve? Throttle valve actuator command 5%, 5.9, went to 5.98. We got engine speed of 200 RPM, 220 RPM while cranking. Exhaust pressure. All the temperature readings look realistic. Barometric pressure looks realistic. It's at 14.28 psi. And we've got rail pressure. Transfer pumps being commanded on. I gotta see if there's a throttle body on this thing. I'm gonna look up the service information on it. So I decided to do a keyword search on Identifix for a cranks no start, and I see a couple of cases. Most of them are not building adequate fuel pressure, but the tech tip here is that the injectors require at least 4,000 psi rail pressure to inject fuel, and that we have. Where's the fuel rail pressure? Maximum rail pressure. Hit 4639, so we should have adequate fuel pressure. So it's acting like it's not getting adequate air or not being able to exhaust. I wonder if the exhaust could be completely blocked. The exhaust manifold pressure went from 14.4 to 14.5. So that's not really an indication of an exhaust restriction. Exhaust manifold pressure sensor. So I'm going to continue looking here. So here's the factory flow chart for cranks but will not start. It's a possible causes. Wireless ignition node codes present. There are none. Intake system leak or restriction. That's my suspicion. Coolant temp sensor, which reads normal. Fuel contamination. I doubt it. Given the circumstances, he drove it and shut it off and didn't fuel it or anything. Glow plugs, hell, it's 23 degrees Fahrenheit or Celsius, so it doesn't need glow plugs to start today. Engine drivetrain, well, that's possible if it's got a mechanically jump timing chain. That could cause incorrect cam timing and lack of compression. Cracked or broken flex plate. Fuel delivery system failure, fuel pressure sensor. So it says check for codes. There are no current codes. So it says go to step 2. Check for the WIN codes, wireless ignition node. There are no codes for security. Check for intake system leaks or restrictions. Turn the ignition off. Make sure vehicle has adequate fuel supply in tank. Carefully inspect all intake air and turbocharger related hoses and tubes connections for leaks. Inspect air filter for excessive dirt. Well, the bottom of the air cleaner housing is in the back seat, I believe. Check the coolant temperature reading. Compare it to actual reading with a heat gun. It's reading, all the temperature readings are the same, about 24 Celsius right now. Glow plugs. I don't think it needs glow plugs to run. Fuel system restriction. Well, we have fuel pressure. Somewhere in here it says, does the fuel pressure sensor signal increase to above 3,500 psi within a few seconds after engine cranking begins? Yes, it does. Cracked or broken flex plate. Engine drive chain is installed correctly and the camshaft and crankshaft gears are timed correctly. Well, we have no cam timing error codes, and I was expected to set cam timing error codes. I'm going to try introducing propane into the air induction system and see if it mechanically will run. So I took the crankcase vent off of the left valve cover here, and I've got a propane bottle connected to it. Now this line is teed right into the elbow at the back of the air induction system. So we're going to crank it and see if it'll fire if if propane is being introduced. Let's try it. And no, it won't. But you notice it kind of fires initially. I really believe we got an air restriction or something. And I have to admit, I'm not familiar with them either. This almost looks like a throttle body of some kind here. Well, I'm going to look up the service literature. So it mentions a throttle actuator. The PCM pre-positions the throttle actuator, determines atmospheric pressure from the map sensor reading, monitors coolant temperature, modifies fuel strategy based on this input. I'm going to see if I can find out how that thing is designed. Well, you got to like this picture. Where the hell is that? Or is that even a diesel? Good grief. So this is the throttle valve actuator housing assembly. And this is the turbo outlet going to the intercooler, and this is the cool air coming from the intercooler going to the throttle actuator. Now looking in there, that throttle actuator is closed. I had a helper here a few minutes ago and put my hand over top of this air induction system while he cranked it, and there's virtually no airflow. I don't think that should be closed. I tried to open it with a screwdriver and it's like it's stuck shut. Now I'm going to use the scan tool to see if we can activate it. Throttle valve actuator. Of course, I've never done this before, so I'm not even 100% certain that this function works on this scan tool. I can see it with the borescope. The valve is closed. I don't know which way it opens. So it's at 5%. It's very slow to respond. It's supposedly 77% and it's still closed. So I'm going to see if I can take that off. Doesn't look too bad. I'm going to try and take it off. So I've taken the front section of it off and disconnected the ambient air temp sensor, I think, or the air temp sensor. And normally a electric throttle body, you can move it. It looks like it would go in on the upper side here, but I can't move this thing in either direction. It's like it's seized. Now, I don't know if I can get it out of there without taking a bunch of plumbing out of the way. I'm moving it away from the intake manifold. Jeez. So I wedged a screwdriver between the throttle body and the intake manifold just to create an opening. I tried to tap on that throttle blade and I can't move it in either direction. I'm going to see if it'll start like that. Well, isn't that special? So my gut feeling was correct, but you would think that desired and actual throttle actuator position don't match, that it would set a fault code, but there are no codes. Normally, a electric throttle body you can move and it's like it's jammed. Well, I'm going to see if I can get it out of there now that we know that that's a problem. Well, I'm at a loss as to how to get this out of here. This thing goes underneath the intake manifold. It won't come forward anymore. I took the fuel lines off. I took the pipe charge air cooler pipe off the right hand or left hand side. There's a motor underneath, and the connector I can't get disconnected. And I don't know what's involved in removing that intake plenum. I took this little solenoid off. I don't know what it is. And one of the brass inserts in the manifold came out. Now, mind you, that's just a mounting screw, so it's not critical. It's not sealing or anything. Oh, brother. It's going to take this high pressure pipe off, but it's not interfering with it. It's just that down inside here, you see that motor. It's not even close. Maybe if I could get that electrical plug disconnected. I'm going to try. So I put this thing on a block of wood and I tapped it and it broke free. Like I said, now I know. And it was jammed right shut. Like I actually bent the plate tapping on it. Well, we're going to see if we can get one tomorrow, or how long it's going to be to get one. Disconnect the battery on this thing.